So, I will be briefly introduce now to biomaterials. So, in last half an hour I have mentioned that one of the core application area for biomaterials is that orthopedic applications and particularly bone analog materials. Now, this slide essentially shows you that what are the different aspects that one has to consider while developing these bone analog materials. So, first one is that processing or nanotechnology approaches, like what are the how to make this material with a bone mimicking microstructure. Remember, natural bone is a collagen and hydroxyapatite based nanobiocomposites. So, collagen is one kind of protein. What is protein? I will introduce you to later. So, you have to remember that collagen is one type of the protein, and also hydroxyapatite is the inorganic part of the human natural bone. And what is hydroxyapatite? Hydroxyapatite is a ceramic phase, which is a inorganic phase and which is a particular stoichiometric composition Ca10, calcium 10, PO4 6, OH 2. So, in the natural bone, hydroxyapatite nanoplatelets are dispersed in the collagenous matrix. Now, this kind of unique structure is very difficult to mimic with any of the synthetic materials, but people have made significant attempts to mimic artificial material as close as to that of the natural bone. So, once this processing is done, then one can characterize the microstructure at multiple length scales, both at 2 dimensional and 3 dimensional, as well as micron scale to nanoscale and so on. Now, surface properties are important, as I said, that biocompatibility or cell material interaction, it is more surface mediated phenomena. So, therefore, what is that? How does the biomaterial surface property is in terms of whether it is hydrophilic property or hydrophobic properties, those are important. Physical properties in terms of strength properties, fracture toughness properties, elastic modular stiffness is one of the major properties of relevance for the biomaterial applications. In vitro compatibility, I have defined briefly what is meant by in vitro, that is that experiments which are conducted usually with petri dishes, glasswares, test tubes and so on. So, those are like in vitro experiments, and traditionally in vitro experiments and the cell level compatibility is established, that is followed by antimicrobial properties. So, these are to be evaluated using various bacterial strains, both pathogenic strains like Staphylococcus species or non-pathogenic strains. And finally, in vivo biocompatibility. Now, in vivo biocompatibility is to be assessed using an appropriate animal model. Now, since bone has hydroxyapatite has one of the inorganic phase. So, if some material does not have hydroxyapatite as one of its microstructural constituent, one of the things that is very important to see whether this material can induce calcium phosphate nodule formation when that particular material is immersed in simulated body fluid over certain time period, and this time period can be few days to few weeks. Now, this is one of the examples that I have given where titanium, which is a well known biocompatible material and which is widely used clinically as for different orthopedic applications, and among that various titanium alloys, titanium 6% aluminum 4% vanadium is perhaps the most widely used materials worldwide. Now, from the simple composition of titanium 6% aluminum 4% vanadium, one can well perceive that this does not have any hydroxyapatite as a second phase in the microstructure. However, when the same titanium material is immersed in simulated body fluid, it can induce that calcium phosphate nodule formation as shown here. So, this is a very nicely arranged nodules of several micrometer in diameter. It is perfectly, more or less perfectly spherical shaped. More importantly, one can notice that this nodules has a very fine level of pore structure, and you can see this is that microporous structure. This porosity is much less than 1 micron, and this kind of hydroxyapatite based nodule formation would essentially reflect on the ability of that specific material to induce biomineralization. Biomineralization essentially means that ability of a material to form surface mineralized layer, means surface layer enriched with calcium phosphate like composition in simulated body fluid or in biologically relevant or physiologically relevant media. Now, before I will formally define the term biomaterials, I am trying to establish some link with the discussion I had a few minutes ago, and in that preceding discussion I have emphasized more and more that a material may have very superior combination of strength, hardness, fracture toughness properties, but if a material does not have acceptable biological properties or acceptable biocompatibility properties, then that material should not be considered for biomedical applications. So, in other words, for a biomaterial to be defined, for a material to be classified as a biomaterial, it must have appreciable biological properties, which can be qualitatively and quantitatively described to give us the confidence that yes, indeed, if the material is placed in a osseous system or in a human in a particular human anatomical sites, then that material would be compatible to the surrounding tissue structure or surrounding biological system. So, mechanical properties. So, this is the first priority, priority number 1, or I should mention as a star, just to emphasize again and again its importance in the context of biomedical applications. So, this is in the order of decreasing priority: mechanical properties, physical properties, and decreasing priority. So, other things which are important to mention at this stage is that what are the issues with the synthetic implant materials, like why researchers worldwide are constantly making attempts to discover new implantable biomaterials. Now, the existing issues with the currently used implant materials include: one is the revision surgery, that is primarily due to prosthetic infection or aseptic loosening, and revision surgery means a patient has to undergo again one surgery at the same anatomical sites where the patient has already undergone the primary surgery. The second one is that once a patient receives an implant material, typically most of the commercially available implants, they elicit very slow host response, and therefore longer healing time like 6 weeks or more required. Third one, in the context of bioceramics particularly, hydroxyapatite is inherently insulator materials, whereas natural bone is has a piezoelectric property in vivo. And fourth one is that fracture resistance property. Ceramics are primarily weak in terms of the fracture resistance property, and just to give an example, this is a Vickers indent. You can make an indent on a material substrate, and the moment you try to make an indent, then from the indent corners that extensive cracking takes place. Now, you can find out that what is the length of this crack. Let us say crack length is C. So, larger the crack length, more it reflects on the poor fracture resistance property of that material. Smaller is the length, crack length, like one material has this much crack length and another material has such a large crack length. So, certainly the material which is such a large crack length, that material is not able to resist the crack propagation when is being indented at the identical load compared to the material which shows very small crack length. So, this kind of qualitative comparison tells you that ceramics which are inherently brittle, and when they would be used or they would be suited for biomedical applications, one has to particularly see that whether the fracture resistance properties are sufficiently good, otherwise it will not be clinically acceptable by medical practitioners. This perhaps is one of the most significant reason that why clinicians often do not prefer ceramic based implants if metallic or polymeric implants can provide similar clinical efficacy. This is a human skeletal system, just to show you that what are the different places that a biomaterials can be used. So, these are these finger joints here, different prosthetic joints. This is the knee joints. This is the load bearing, one of the popular load bearing joints, THR. THR stands for total hip joint replacement. This is TKR. TKR stands for total knee replacement, knee joint replacement. Spines, in the spine people use titanium, and currently people are considering to use tantalum also. In the cranium and maxillofacial reconstructions also people are using biomaterials. In the ear, cochlear implants, in the cochlear implants people use certain electrodes which are biocompatible in nature. Dental materials, as I told you before, the dental materials people use titanium 6 aluminum 4 vanadium as a dental implant, and over which one can use the crown material which can be zirconia or other bioceramic materials or alumina, and titanium 6% 4% vanadium which is used as dental implants. We are currently investigating that how one can put that hydroxyapatite coating to provide this kind of implant better osseointegration. At the same time, one can also put some abutment part diamond-like carbon coating to reduce the frictional properties of this implant materials. So, lesser the friction, lesser the pain the patients will experience, and it will be good health care, it will lead to better health care. Heart also for different cardiovascular applications like stents and so on, people use nickel titanium based safe memory alloys. In the heart valves people use Teflon or diamond-like carbon coated titanium 6 aluminum 4% vanadium as a heart valve applications. Okay. Now, I have briefly mentioned about the natural bone composition. Here it shows you some numbers, and these numbers are important for you to realize that what is the relative percentage of different composition, different constituents. First one is that 65% mineral component, that is calcium hydroxyapatite crystals, and typically this calcium hydroxyapatite has a stoichiometric composition as I mentioned earlier. Let me write down this for your knowledge. calcium 10, PO4 hole 6, OH hole 2. 23% is collagen. Collagen has different types, collagen type 1 to collagen type 9, and collagen 10 is also there. So, but we have mostly the collagen type 1. Then we have 2% non-collagenous protein and 10% water. The other things I would like to bring to your attention is that this is a rough macroscopic structure of a part of a long bone. What you can see that this bone does not have a very regular geometric shape and size, means you cannot describe this bone structure using a regular cylindrical shaped or rectangular shaped or square shaped. In fact, it has a very non-uniform shape and size. So, therefore, any material you would like to replace it as a full bone structure, this material should have sufficient machinability, so that you can shape this material to a particular shape, and this material. So, therefore, this one thing that one can address is that near net shape processing. That means you take you consider the design file of a bone to be replaced, and then you export the design file to the additive manufacturing machine, and this additive manufacturing machine will decompose this design file into capital N number of layers, alternating layers, and there you can just use this layer by layer fabrication technique. I thought it was important for you to realize that bone has a very regular structure. Therefore, the material, if it is to be replacing, it has to replace the bone, then it has to also be processed or manufactured into that specific shape and size. Now, in terms of properties, the cortical bone, so there are two types of typical bone structures, two types of, one is cortical structure, one is cancellous structure. So, cortical bone has a range of properties like tensile strength 60 to 160 megapascal, which is not very high. Elastic modulus is 3 to 80 gigapascal. So, 60 to 160 megapascal strength is lower than many of the metallic materials tensile strength. For example, stainless steel has a tensile strength more than 500 megapascal. Fracture toughness also, the bone, because it has a collagen and hydroxyapatite, both phases are there, it is 2 to 12 MPa square root meter. Now, titanium, for example, as you can see, the titanium has a much higher tensile strength of the bone, that is good. Compression strength of bone is 130 to 180 megapascal, which is lower than many of the ceramic materials, because if you are from material science background, you would know that compression strength of any ceramic is 8 times that of the tensile strength of that given ceramics, meaning that although the tensile strength of hydroxyapatite can be as low as 40 megapascal, but compression strength of the same hydroxide composition can be as high as 300 megapascal. So, it is more than close to 8 times higher than tensile strength. Elastic modulus of hydroxyapatite, and for that matter any ceramic material, can be very high, like 120 gigapascal for example in hydroxyapatite. However, the major problem with hydroxyapatite like ceramics is that poor fracture toughness, like 0.6 to 1 MPa square root meter. So, this therefore demands that fracture toughness of this kind of material be improved significantly, so that it not only reaches the lower limit of the cortical bone properties, that is 2 MPa square root meter, but it also should be as close to the higher upper limit of the natural bone fracture toughness, that is 12 MPa square root meter. Okay, little bit introduction to engineering materials, metals and alloys, ceramics and glass, and polymers. So, these are the 3 primary material classes that enter engineering materials can be classified to, and each of this material class has its own advantages as well as disadvantages. Now, advantages include that high fracture toughness and dislocation plasticity, but disadvantages include that poor corrosion and wear resistance, because many of these materials when implanted, they will experience physiological medium, and then typically in human physiological medium the pH temperature is not uniformly same throughout the body. So, they dynamically change. Now, under dynamic change of this pH and so on, these materials would experience the corrosion and wear related phenomena, particularly at the articulating joints. So, therefore, this degradation in material properties is quite obvious, and that has been an issue for the metals and alloys. Now, for ceramics, as I said, that fracture toughness is an important limitation for ceramics, because they are brittle in nature. Another one is the strength reliability. Strength reliability meaning, if you take 20 samples of alumina biomaterial from the same large disc of alumina. So, for example, this is a large alumina disc and you have 20 samples which is cut from this alumina like that. Now, each will have a different strength value, simply because strength depends on the crack size and crack size distribution in the structure. So, each sample may be having, although they have a uniform composition alumina, but each sample may be having different crack density, crack density, and as a result the strength would be different. Polymers is another important material class which are used for biomedical applications. It has a very low density because it is made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and it also has a high flexibility. And the disadvantage of the polymer also can be degradation and erosion in the physiological environment, and also polymers do not have a great combination of the mechanical properties in terms of the strength properties, in terms of the fracture toughness properties and so on. So, therefore, in order to combine the advantageous properties of the three material classes, one is metals, two is ceramics, three is polymers, you can combine either metals or ceramics, you can combine either metals or polymers, or you can combine metals and ceramics and polymer, or one can combine metals and polymer as well. So, there are three classes of materials, there are three classes of composite materials which take advantages of the good properties of the three primary classes with an endpoint objective to achieve a property which is higher than the simple sum of the individual phase property, lead to the development of three distinct classes of composites which are metal matrix composites abbreviated as MMC, ceramic matrix composites abbreviated as CMC, polymer matrix composites abbreviated as PMC. So, just a quick introduction to metals and alloys. I reiterate here that they are widely used for various engineering applications as well as biomedical applications because of their good ductility property. Good ductility means it has good plastic deformation properties, and that allows the metals to be shaped into different size and shape. Some of the material which is important for biomedical applications like titanium 6%, 6% aluminum, 4% vanadium, it has a very high fracture toughness like 105 to 120 MPa square meter, which is orders of magnitude higher than that of the ceramics materials. Corrosion and wear are the primary concern. This is the TM image, transmission electron microscopy image of aluminum, just to show how the dislocation threads are there, and this is the dislocation lines in the materials. So, why use metals for biomedical applications? They have a elastic stiffness and they are strong. The most important thing that perhaps gains lot of clinical acceptance is that properties of fabrication are reproducible. That means, if you take stainless steel materials from different sources, you can actually weld the stainless steel materials, you can make a screw out of it, you can make a plate out of it, you can join it, but they will have if it is a stainless steel materials, and if it is the same grade of materials, it will have a reliable properties. The property will not vary from sample to sample, which is otherwise the case for ceramic materials. So, essentially clinical reliability is much more in for metallic based materials compared to other classes of materials. I mention it here in the third points, like various joining or metal forming process can be adopted to obtain desired size and shapes, and can be fitted or joined to biological structures, means osseous bone structures. Commonly used metals: titanium based alloys, titanium aluminum 4 vanadium, 6% aluminum 4 vanadium, then titanium aluminum niobium, titanium niobium zirconium 306, low carbon stainless steel alloys. So, iron 16 iron chromium nickel, cobalt chrome alloys which are used also for knee joint replacement, nitinol, that is nickel titanium based shape memory alloys which are used for cardiovascular stents. So, these are the different examples of these metallic plates which are used in these applications. You can see these holes right here. So, these holes means it has to be used by drilling. Now, if you imagine to use this long plate as which is made up of some ceramics, the moment you try to make a hole into the ceramic plate, this entire plate will simply fracture to two pieces. So, simply because it will not be able to sustain the drilling induced stresses, and it causes significant cracking and fracture. Also, you can see that in a nail, this is just to fix the plate into a during trauma surgery or various other orthopedic surgical applications. These nails can go into the hole and then can be fitted into tissue or bone structure. This is a simple example of the femoral stem as well as this total hip joint replacement. Here you will have femoral ball head that is fitted here, and you have acetabular socket which is going inside. I mentioned a couple of times that we can use this titanium screw, and this titanium screw has different threads, and this threads titanium 61 aluminum 4% vanadium, it can be used for dental restorative applications. Next one is polymers. Now, polymers are characterized by long chain molecules. It is a macromolecular structure, and macromolecular structure essentially means that it has this polymers, essentially a combination of several monomers which are joined together. Now, depending on monomer, it is very flexible, it has also high damping capacity. Popular example is polytetrafluoroethylene, polystyrene and so on. Other biomedically relevant polymers are PLA PGA, that is that polylactic acid, polyglycolic acid is a biodegradable polymer. You have polymethyl methacrylate, that is a bone cement, it is largely used. You have high density polyethylene, this is also another popular example of the biopolymers. Cardiovascular applications, this is the very popular example of heart valve, this polytetrafluoroethylene. So, it is used for blood contacting devices. So, therefore, thrombogenesis is one of the properties that one has to check for. Intraocular lenses, polymethyl methacrylate, that is kind of used in the intraocular lenses. So, PMMA as well as PDMS, polydimethyl siloxane. So, it is known as inorganic polymer because it does not have a carbon hydrogen or carbon oxygen bonds. Instead of, it has a polydimethyl siloxane. So, dimethyl means 2 methyl group, and then again silicon is there. And this polydimethyl siloxane is has received lot of attention for these intraocular lens applications. Now, ceramics are one of the important material classes simply because of the fact that it has an excellent combination of hardness and wear resistance properties, and it has a large compressive strength properties. It is a unprecedented compressive strength which is much higher than that of the metals, and it can be used as articulating joints and bearing components in combination with polymers and metals as well. Some of the popular examples of the bioceramic materials: hydroxyapatite HA, which is quite widely used, alumina also can be used say biomedical applications. So, this is a formal textbook type of definition of ceramics. Like in general, ceramics are broadly defined as a class of inorganic non-metallic materials. It has a combination of ionic and covalent bonding, and typically it is processed at high temperature. So, there are two broad classifications, one is that engineering ceramics, one is traditional ceramics. Engineering ceramics, it depends on the use of high quality fine powders and process parameters, and they are used for a variety of applications, right from space shuttle tiles to the artificial bone structure, which we will discuss more and more in this course. Now, total hip joint replacement is one of the popular example where titanium stainless steel is used as the stem. Nowadays, one of the developments is that one can use that hydroxyapatite coatings on these titanium or stainless steel structures to make it more biocompatible or to have better osseointegration properties. Now, you have this metal. So, you have this femoral ball head here and you have the acetabular socket. Now, this femoral ball head structure can be made up of either ceramic or polymer or metal. So, therefore, you can have metal combination, you can have polymer, you can have metal combination like cobalt chrome versus cobalt chrome. You have ceramic on ceramic, but that often cause lot of noise. For example, ZTA, zirconia toughened alumina versus zirconia toughened alumina. Metal and polymer based materials like you can have cobalt chrome versus ultramolecular polyethylene, that is also clinically used, or people have done lot of hip simulator studies on this kind of materials. Now, this shows that these are hydroxyapatite based coatings, and this is your femoral ball head which is going into the acetabular socket here, and this is a knee replacement materials. So, knee and hip, you can see that the way the tibial component and femoral component are placed is characteristically different. So, before I finish today's lecture, let me now define that what is meant by biomaterial. I will give you some 3-4 definitions which are taken from different textbooks, which I have mentioned it at the beginning of this course. A biomaterial is a term used to indicate materials that constitute parts of medical implants, extracorporeal devices and disposables that have been utilized in medicine, surgery, dentistry and veterinary medicine. Some textbook type of definition is that any natural synthetic material that interfaces with living tissues or biological fluid or elicit biological response. This is a kind of very old definition. Some modern definitions include is that substance that has been engineered to take a form which alone or as a part of a complex system is used to direct by control of interactions with components of living systems. By components of living systems means proteins, cells, blood which is also in tissue as well as bacteria. So, once a material is implanted in a living system, it has to interact with the proteins. So, protein adsorption is a precursor to cell adhesion, cell proliferation. Then blood, like it should have a good blood compatibility or hemocompatibility, it should have a tissue compatibility. And bacteria, a material, ideally material should not encourage the growth of bacteria, because if the bacteria grows, then it can cause biofilm formation, then it can cause infection, and it can ultimately lead to revision surgery. And all this interaction leads to the therapeutic or diagnostic procedure. So, this is that formal definition of biomaterials, and I hope I would like to continue further on this topic in the next lecture. Thank you.